Sharon was not pleased. Actually, she was furious. Furious with me, her husband, Frank Miller. How did I discern her ire? It's straightforward. While driving us home from a gathering hosted by acquaintances of hers, Anne and Hank Vander Link, she sat clenched in her seat, as distant from me as possible, wearing a scowl that could curdle milk. Why was she so upset with me? Well, truth be told, I reckon she had every right, given that I single-handedly spoiled her evening. Quite the blunder, huh? I ought to feel ashamed for embarrassing my wife, the mother of my 3 kids. Shame on me. Shame on me. So how did I manage to embarrass her and ruin the night? I grabbed the wrong key. You see, there's a peculiar twist to the parties hosted by the Wonderlings. A twist that my dear wife suddenly decided to embrace. Unfortunately for her, I had no interest in it. We'd never attended one of their gatherings before, but my wife, married to me for a decade, neglected to inform me that the evening's affair would deviate from the usual party scene. She neglected to inform me beforehand that at this gathering, all the wives were expected to place their house keys in a bowl. Subsequently, the husbands would blindly select a key from the bowl and then accompany the corresponding wife to her bedroom for an entire night of love-making, illicit pleasures. As the party drew to a close and I suddenly grasped the nature of the event, I nearly lost my mind. I've never been so furious with Sharon. I seized her hand and pulled her into the kitchen. "Did you have prior knowledge of how this party would conclude?" I demanded. She met my gaze with a smirk. "Yes. And you didn't see fit to inform me of this crucial detail beforehand?" "No, because I knew you wouldn't consent if given the choice." "You're absolutely right. I won't consent to this. And I always have a choice. Let's depart from here. We can't leave now. It would be impolite. You'd place me in an uncomfortable situation. Furthermore, it's just for one night. It could inject some excitement back into our marriage. I can do without this type of excitement. Let's apologize and leave." "We truly need a bit of excitement, Frank." "I only need a bit of excitement for one night. I want to feel desired, not solely as a wife and mother. It's just one night and it won't happen again. Plus, I already dropped our house key in the bowl, so we're committed," she reasoned. "It's not too late. Look at me," I retorted. Taking her hand, I practically dragged her back to the living room where everyone gathered around a bowl of keys, ready to pick their partner for the night. Sharon resisted, trying to break free from my grasp. Relinquishing my hold, I approached the bowl and declared, "I wasn't briefed on this aspect of the evening's festivities, and I won't share my wife with any of you." Digging through the bowl, I located the key to our house, distinguished by its red plastic cover. Extracting it, I addressed the astonished partygoers. "As I said, I wasn't informed of the party's rules beforehand. I don't condone infidelity, and my marriage vows are sacred." Though there were murmurs of discontent and a few scowling faces, I remained resolute. Turning to my wife, who was visibly furious, I issued an ultimatum. "Sharon, you have a choice, but you must decide now. Come with me and forget this madness, or stay and never return home. I'm leaving." All eyes shifted to my wife, her face now flushed with embarrassment. For a moment, she appeared defiant. "I apologize for my husband's behavior," she addressed the group. "I'd prefer to stay, but given the circumstances, it's best if I leave." Reluctantly and angrily, she followed me to the car. "You're insufferable and selfish," she lashed out as we left. "How could you embarrass me like that in front of everyone? We'll never be invited back." "Embarrass you? What about how you embarrassed me by not telling me about your plan to sleep with another man tonight?" "Well, you could pick one of the other wives, and we could both enjoy ourselves." "I don't desire another woman, Sharon. I reserve this lovemaking activity exclusively for my wife. And I'm quite dismayed to discover, after a decade of marriage, that you want to share your bed with another man." "It would only be once, Frank. Out of all the countless nights we've shared and will continue to share, you're proposing just one night with someone else? It's not a minor request, especially considering I've been a faithful husband for the past 10 years. In truth, Sharon, this is a significant request. I can't believe what I'm hearing." "But it means so much to you, doesn't it?" "Yes, Frank, it does. I've been anticipating this for weeks. A night where I'm not just a wife and mother, but a woman experiencing adventure, feeling cherished, and indulging in a few hours of closeness with another man." "So it's your only opportunity to have coition with someone other than your husband?" "Yes, I suppose." I slammed on the brakes, executed a 180-degree turn in the middle of the street, and sped back toward the Vander Links' house, tires squealing. Sharon let out a squeal as I made an exclamation. "What are you thinking, Frank? If sleeping with another man for one night is that important to you, then go ahead and do it, Sharon. I halted in front of their house, noticing all the other cars still parked there. It seemed there was still time for you to join in. So go ahead, step out. Have a good time tonight. Find some stranger to satisfy you in ways I evidently can't. Frank, this is just an adventure, something different. Your performance is always perfect and you know how to please me. But I can't go to them alone. We both have to participate. Each of us has to spend the night with a new partner. I've already told you, I want no part in this. Sharon, I've never been unfaithful to you and I won't sleep with another woman until our marriage is over. What does that mean? It means exactly what I said. It's decision time, Sharon. So if you're going to do this, go ahead and join your unfaithful friends. I'm sure they'll welcome a beautiful woman into their circle, even if she's not accompanied by her husband. Sharon reached for the doorknob but hesitated. I could see her contemplating. Could you pick me up in the morning, Frank? Wherever I end up, I'll call you and let you know. It would mean a lot to me. No chance. But I'm sure your new lover will be happy to take you wherever after spending the night with you. It sounds awful when you put it like that, Frank. He won't be my lover. He'll simply be someone new, a one-night experience, that's all. I love you, Frank. You're the only man I've ever loved or will ever love. Do you truly believe that? You can't claim to love me and then go through with this plan. Let me clarify. You're just seeking a new carnal encounter, right? Consequently, another man will potentially impregnate you. That's crude, Frank. You know I'm on birth control, so that's not a concern. He won't get me pregnant. But yes, just one night with someone new. It'll be thrilling. Have you ever wondered what it's like to explore someone new lovemaking? Just a new experience, new sensations, everything fresh and different. Just wait and see. Our closeness will be better than ever. Well, enjoy your time with the new guy and the new sensations. Sharon, I hope you're aware of what you're doing. It's only one night, Frank. It's not a big deal. Even a second would be too much. We have our entire future together. If you do this, we won't have anything left. I'm pleading with you, Sharon. Please don't do this. You're overreacting, Frank. And I'm sticking to my decision. You won't ruin my night. I want to experience something new. And you can't stop me. I'm going through with it and you'll just have to accept it. Do you understand? Tomorrow morning, I'll be completely devoted to you again and I'll make you forget all about this. Tomorrow morning, you'll be history. I'll never want you again after you let another man have what I've always considered mine. Now you're being irrational. I belong to you and you'll want me too. I'll make sure of it. Sharon, listen to me. If you leave this car and go back to that house, it's over between us. Your one night will cost you your marriage and your family. No, that won't happen, Frank. I won't allow it. We're married and always will be. We're meant for each other. I love you, and I know how much you love me. We'll get through this. You'll see. I'll make it up to you countless times. You're breaking my heart, Sharon. Don't act like a child. Think of it as taking me on an adventure. What's exciting for you is the end of us. You're not making sense, Frank. I'll change your mind in the morning, and you know how I'll do it. Do you honestly think I'd touch you after you spend the night with someone else? You'll touch me, and more. I'll ensure that. God, I never realized how foolish you are. Get out. My words stunned her, but she opened the car door and began to exit. See you in the morning, Frank. I shook my head sadly, sighing. No, Sharon, I won't see you. And as soon as she pushed the door to close it, I stepped on the gas pedal, making the tires squeal again, this time for half a block. As I drove away, I stole a glance at her in the rearview mirror. She looked completely stunned, standing on the side of the road in disbelief, mouth agape, still motionless as I turned the corner and she vanished from sight. In my heart of hearts, I prayed she'd call me immediately, admit her mistake, and ask me to come back for her. But she didn't. I was shattered and overwhelmed. Tears streamed down my cheeks, blurring my vision. My wife had just chosen a night with a stranger over our 10 years of marriage. Based on her behavior, I'm convinced she genuinely believed I'd brush off her little scheme. Maybe she expected me to be mad for a couple of days, then she'd charm me back into bed and everything would be forgiven. Well, she couldn't have been more mistaken. My dad once told me that if a woman is seriously contemplating sleeping with another man, she's already mentally done it. For a married woman to entertain such thoughts, she's already broken her vows. Sure, it's normal to fantasize about an attractive person, but if she's plotting how to make it a reality, she's already crossed the line. As painful as this realization is, it's shattered our marriage and it's time to move forward. The real tragedy in all of this is our 3 children. 9-year-old Jocelyn, 8-year-old Rebecca Ann, and 4-year-old Frank Jr. How can I bear to be without them every day? But I can't let Sharon's actions go without serious consequences. The kids were at my mother's for the weekend, giving me time to plan my next moves. I drove around aimlessly for half an hour, still holding out hope that Sharon would call for a ride. But it became clear she'd made her decision. Finally, I settled on my initial plan and headed home. Upon pulling into the driveway, my cell phone rang and I hoped it was her, urging me to pick her up. However, the caller ID revealed it wasn't Sharon. Despite this, I answered the call. In the background, the sounds of music and laughter from the party resonated, and a man spoke. "Frank, buddy, it's Rick Wilson from the party you left. Your wife gave me your number, hoping I could talk some sense into you. She's eager for tonight's events. That's all she's saying. You're one lucky guy. Every guy here hopes to get her key. She's insisting someone will have an unforgettable night, and she wants you to be a part of it. It's getting heated here. Everyone's eager to see who they'll be spending the night with. You still have time to come back and pick a key. There are some attractive women here ready to show you a good time tonight. Screw you, Rick Wilson, you manipulative fool. And everyone at your party can go to hell with you, including my unfaithful wife. I hope you all meet a horrible fate." I hung up and staggered into the house. In less than 20 minutes, I packed 2 suitcases with enough clothes for a week or two. Grabbing my laptop and shaving kit, I loaded everything into the car. After rummaging through a few drawers, I found our marriage certificate and tore it into 4 pieces. Then, I retrieved a hammer from my wedding ring. It took several blows to flatten it, but once done, I placed both the certificate and ring on Sharon's pillow, locked the front door behind me, and drove off into the night. I aimed to locate a motel a few miles outside of town, but before that, I circled past the Van Deerlinks' place once more. Several cars had departed the party, and a few people stood in pairs conversing on the street. Not spotting Sharon, I assumed she had either moved on with her new companion or paired up with Mr. Van der Link himself. The motel I settled on was in a nearby town. It didn't appear overly large, but it boasted a secluded parking lot in the rear, shielding my car from prying eyes in case anyone happened to look for it. After locking the car, I purchased a 6-pack of Newcastle from the adjacent convenience store and opted to catch some TV. The first 2 drinks eased my tension, and as I cracked open the third, my phone rang. Seeing it was Sharon, and knowing she wasn't calling for me to pick her up, I allowed it to go to voicemail. "Frank, you're behaving like a child over this. Rick Wilson filled me in on what you told him. How many times do I have to say it's just one night? I'll let one new guy have coition with me a few times, and that doesn't make me immoral. I swear, even if it stings a bit, I'll make it up to you in ways you can't imagine when I return tomorrow. You probably don't care, but since you removed our house key from the bowl, they gave me a new one. The guy who got it is named Glenn. He seems nice and assured me he won't pressure me into anything. He's married with kids like ours. Since you're at our house, I went to his. His wife and her boyfriend will also stay, but in a different part of the house so we won't disturb each other when things get heated and we start making noise. You know how vocal I can get when you touch me?" She giggled. "Darling, I know you're a bit upset, but I promise I won't let him do anything you haven't done." I suggested to Glenn that we stick to the usual stuff. He's met me a few times, mostly in missionary or something else for variety. Glenn agreed, especially since it's my first time with another man. He'll take me home when we're done tomorrow. I'll shower and freshen up before I return to be clean and ready for you. No leftovers for you, baby. Sweet dreams, my love. See you in the morning. Get ready for some excitement. Love you, Frank." I felt like my insides were being torn apart. Never did I imagine I was married to such a foolish and immoral woman. Sure, Sharon had always been a bit flighty, but it was part of her endearing charm. Now her foolishness was amplified and could cost her everything. Her life, her husband, and possibly her children. She couldn't comprehend that I wouldn't forgive her after she let another man have her and flaunted it in my face. I'm sure everyone at the party had a good laugh at my expense. I was furious, wounded, and utterly humiliated. But my wife didn't care. I knew I should have ignored her message, but I couldn't resist. I dialed her number, and she answered on the 3rd ring. "Hey, honey. Glenn and I just got into bed and are getting cozy, so I can't talk for long." "Shut up, Sharon. This is likely the last you'll hear from me. You have no idea what you've done, but you'll soon find out. Enjoy your time with Glenn because the consequences will be more severe than you can imagine. Understand this, Sharon. Once you sleep with Glenn, our marriage is finished. Got it? It's over. I never thought I'd say this, but I hate you more now than I've ever loved you. I can't wait to rid myself of you completely. Expect to hear from my lawyer next week." And with that, I hung up. 30 seconds later, my phone rang. It was her. I let it go to voicemail once more. "Frank," she sounded on the verge of tears. "Why are you doing this? How can you say such things to me? I'm your wife. Can't you just let me have this one night? Glenn and I are just beginning, and now you're ruining everything for me. I don't know if I can fully enjoy being with him the way I want. We're not getting divorced. I'll be home in the morning and we can sort things out. I would come home now, but I promised Glenn I'd be with him tonight. Please understand, I have to do this. He got my key and I promised him he could sleep with me. And he really wants it now. Oh yes, right now, while I'm talking to you, I have to go. Oh God, Glenn is ready. Oh, I love you, Frank. I'll always love you. Please don't say that. When I do this with him, our marriage will end. There's nothing I can do about it, honey. He's already here. Oh God, please. Oh yes, please try to understand." And I heard her whisper to him, "Sleep with me, Glenn. This is my night. See you in the morning, dear." And again, I couldn't resist. I called her back, and this time the phone rang several times before going to voicemail, indicating Glenn already had it. So I left a message. "After hearing your last voicemail, it's clear Glenn already has you, and you love it. You can spend the night with him, feeling all the new sensations he gives you. You've shattered my heart, Sharon, and I'll never forgive you for that. It's good you kept your promise to Glenn, a man you just met, but you couldn't uphold your marriage vows to the man who loved you and stayed faithful for over 10 years. I don't even recognize you anymore. You won't see me in the morning. You may never see me again, but next week you'll be served with divorce papers, and I'll file for infidelity. Now that you're with Glenn, what else did you allow? Only me. You're officially a cheating adulterer. From now on, you can sleep with any man you want as much as you want. But in case you care, you've lost me forever, and I'll definitely keep that promise." Sharon never returned my call. I know how aroused she becomes during coition. She enters a realm where nothing and no one else matters. It's just her and the man she's with. Whether she received my last message or not didn't matter. The damage was irreparable. Our marriage was finished. I couldn't forgive her for treating me with such disrespect, humiliating me, and undermining our marriage. I finished the remainder of the six-pack. I didn't want to spend the night picturing my wife lying undressed in Glenn's bed, the woman who, until tonight, had been exclusively mine. Sharon was vocal during coition, and I was certain she would cry out for Glenn to satisfy her, just as she did with me, and I'm sure she did the same with Glenn. Eventually, the beer took its toll, and I drifted off to sleep, tears still streaming down my face. I woke up about 4 hours later, and reality dawned on me. My once beautiful wife had betrayed me, and I needed to devise a plan to safeguard my children, rid myself of her, and inflict as much misery as possible on those at the party. We reside in Biloxi, Mississippi, a picturesque antebellum area on the Gulf Coast. Given that Mississippi recognizes infidelity as grounds for divorce, I might avoid paying child support and potentially gain custody of my children. I required a skilled attorney, a very capable attorney. I showered, changed clothes, and dialed my mom at 7:30 to brief her on the situation. She was equally stunned by Sharon's actions. With the kids under her care for the weekend, she assured me she wouldn't divulge anything to them. I informed her I'd retrieve them once I had a plan in place. Despite my reluctance, I conceded that Sharon would likely be awarded custody, at least temporarily. I grudgingly acknowledged she had been a devoted mother to our children and a faithful wife to me. However, that perception shifted after last night. Following my conversation with my mom, I made my way to a nearby diner for breakfast. Before I could even park, my phone rang. It was Sharon. Contemplating whether to answer, I opted for voicemail. Strangely, she didn't leave a message but promptly called again. Ignoring the call, she persistently dialed until eventually, on the 5th attempt, she left a tearful voicemail. "Frank, please answer the phone. Talk to me, damn it! What do you mean? You might never see me again. And why all this talk about divorce papers? You can't leave me, Frank. I won't allow it. Our 3 precious children need us both. Dear God, Frank, why did you tear up our marriage certificate and discard your wedding ring? How could you? I gave you that ring on our wedding day, and you vowed to wear it forever. It symbolizes our enduring love for each other. I knew you'd be upset with me, but I never imagined you'd go this far. I love you deeply, Frank. I just needed that special night with Glenn. And it was special. He made me feel youthful again. I've already forgotten what it's like to laugh and scream simultaneously, but as wonderful as last night was, you're my man, Frank. My only man. I know how to make it right and dissolve your grievances. Please come home, Frank. Let me show you how much I adore you. Come home and bring me back." At that moment, she broke into tears, her words becoming muffled and hard to decipher. "Damn it, Frank. Why can't you see that I just needed one night with someone new? I needed to experience something different with a man who desired me, who craved me. It felt good to know that another man finds me desirable, that he can't wait to have me, to possess me. You don't understand how affirming it is for a woman my age to see a man excited about her and to know she's the reason he desires her. Oh, please, Frank, you have to realize it was only about coition, nothing more. He simply had coition with me. Please, Frank, let's talk. I love you. You and our kids mean everything to me." Her voice wavered as she spoke. "It was just coition, Frank. Oh, God. He only had coition with me a few times. We were just engaging in coition, that's all, Frank." Her sobs persisted until the message concluded. I stood outside the diner, stunned. Had she harbored these thoughts throughout our entire marriage? And now, after 30 years, it all surfaced suddenly. Sharon remained a striking woman. Shoulder-length dark brown hair, light blue eyes, and a stunning figure. While her chest weren't overly large, they weren't small either. And yes, her hips had widened slightly after 3 kids. Still, she continued to attract attention from men wherever she went. So what was this talk about needing to feel desired by another man? I consistently demonstrated my love and desire for her. I regularly surprised her with flowers and took her out on weekly dates. I even bought her alluring negligées and affirmed her beauty and my love for her daily. Until last night, I believed our bed life was fulfilling. We made love at least 3 times a week, always reaching multiple climaxes. What could I have possibly overlooked? Despite losing my appetite, I entered the diner, found a vacant table, and ordered scrambled eggs, toast, and black coffee. Although I barely touched my meal, I consumed at least 6 cups of coffee. I had never felt so adrift, so hollow, so utterly defeated. I'd heard people wish for pass away, and now I understood why. The only thing keeping me from succumbing to despair was the thought of my children. I had to endure for their sake, to navigate the turmoil Sharon had unleashed and carve out a future for them. This realization fueled my resolve. I would persevere. I just needed to devise a plan. Sharon called my phone incessantly that day, but I consistently sent her calls to voicemail. She pleaded for understanding, but never once apologized for her actions. There was no admission of error, only insistence that she needed that one night. And my role, apparently, was to comprehend and support her. All they did was engage in carnal activity, merely 3 times throughout the night, and again in the morning. That's it. How could I fail to recognize that this was just a one-night stand, easily forgiven and forgotten? She mentioned she was worried she hadn't turned off her phone in time, and I might have overheard her with Glenn. She hoped I hadn't heard too much. I had to give her credit. She certainly knew how to plunge a knife into my heart and twist the blade. I couldn't fathom her level of foolishness. If there was one silver lining, it was that I now possessed sufficient audio evidence of her infidelity to use against her in court. I wasn't certain if it would suffice, but it was undeniably compelling and left nothing to the imagination. Tomorrow, I would seek out a competent lawyer and gather all the necessary information. I paid a visit to my children at my mother's place. She mentioned that Sharon had already called to check on the kids and inquire about my whereabouts. Mom informed her that I was devastated by her actions and had no desire to see or speak to her. According to my mother, Sharon began to cry, expressing her confusion. Mom reassured her that no man would comprehend why a wife would flaunt a night of closeness with another man in her husband's face. Sharon inquired if she should retrieve the children, but my mother suggested it would be best for her to keep them for a few more days until things settled down. The children greeted me with joy, but inquired about their mother's whereabouts. I explained that she was occupied with a special project, and they would be staying with their grandmother a bit longer. We played together, shared dinner, then I bid them farewell with hugs and kisses before heading back to my motel. Tomorrow promised to be hectic. Before calling it a day, I made one final stop, or rather, drove past. Tears welled up as soon as I laid eyes on my house again. I mourned what I had lost and could never reclaim. It struck me as odd not to spot any unfamiliar vehicles in the driveway. Although a car could have been in the garage, the solitary glow from the kitchen downstairs indicated Sharon was likely alone tonight. Yet a lingering concern surfaced. I still cared. Despite her actions, the betrayal stung deeply. I wrestled with the urge to stop and observe her, but ultimately succumbed. Parking a block away, I approached the side where I could peek through the kitchen window. There she sat, a discarded bottle of Grey Goose by her side, hair disheveled, mascara smudged. Clad in a robe, she rested her head on the table facing me, eyes closed. It was evident she wept, surrounded by a mound of tissues. For a moment, a pang of sympathy stirred within me. Then, recollection of her choices and their repercussions flooded back, chilling me to the core. I resisted the urge to lash out and instead retreated to my car, driving off with a tinge of satisfaction. Perhaps she was beginning to grasp the gravity of her actions. If she sought solace, she could turn to her paramour, Glenn. Monday dawned, and I faced a busy agenda. At the diner, I devoured eggs, toast, and coffee, finishing my meal entirely. I phoned my mom and spoke with each of my children, assuring them of my love and imminent return. Next, I contacted my office, informing my assistant that personal matters would occupy my attention for the next 2 days, urging her to reach out if anything urgent arose. She inquired if all was well, and I replied in the affirmative, promising to elaborate later. During my final year at Ole Miss, I shared an apartment with 2 close friends, Douglas Prater III and Maxwell McCrae. Our bond endured over time, despite infrequent reunions. While I pursued a degree in computer science, Doug pursued business administration, and Max pursued law. Initially, I reached out to Doug, asking if he and Max could join me for drinks around 5. I explained that I needed their counsel on a pressing issue, and Doug agreed to coordinate with Max to meet me at the lava bar by the beach. Arriving early, I awaited their arrival. Max appeared slightly after 5, followed by Doug 10 minutes later. After warm greetings, we settled at a patio table, ordered beers, and raised our glasses in a toast. "What's on your mind, Frank?" inquired Doug. "Your call sounded serious," he added. "Sharon cheated on me and flaunted it," I disclosed, narrating the entire ordeal. "Man, that's rough," sympathized Doug. "I can't fathom she'd do such a thing," chimed in Max. "Indeed, and with no remorse, believing I'm overreacting. Can you believe that?" I exclaimed. "So, what's the plan?" Max inquired. "I'm contemplating divorce and seeking retribution against Glenn and the others at the party. But most importantly, I want to pursue custody of my kids," I outlined. "It won't be a cakewalk, Frank," cautioned Max. "Unless she's unfit as a mother. If she brings strange men home for trysts while the kids are present, you have leverage. Otherwise, if she's a good mother, she'll likely secure custody and you'll have to pay child support," he advised. "I'm fine with that, as long as I have frequent access to them. It's manageable," Max affirmed. "Courts generally prefer both parents to be involved in child rearing, provided they're both competent caregivers." "What about finances?" Doug interjected. "Sharon's a stay-at-home mom, and I assume you earn a substantial 6-figure income. How are your financials looking? Checking and savings accounts? Any investments? 401k? Individual retirement account?" "I have all of those, totaling around $700,000 to $800,000, perhaps a bit more. The court will likely split it evenly. Give Sharon the house along with custody. But if you can substantiate her infidelity, which appears quite plausible, you may avoid alimony payments. Do you know an exceptional divorce attorney? One of the partners at my firm is among Mississippi's top family law practitioners. Her name's Maddie Simmons. Want me to arrange a meeting for you?" "Certainly, the sooner the better," Max suggested. "In the meantime," Doug added, "I'll explore options to safeguard some of your assets. Send me all your financial details and I'll handle it." After another toast, we shared a few more drinks and bid farewell. Suddenly, I felt a sense of relief I hadn't experienced since this ordeal began. As I drove back to my motel, my mind raced with all the tasks ahead. My cell phone rang, and it was Sharon. After a brief hesitation, I realized I'd have to confront her eventually, so I pulled over and answered. "What do you want, Sharon?" I opted for directness, cutting to the chase. "What do you think I want, Frank? I want my husband to come home where he belongs." I could hear the tears in her voice. "Unfortunately, your little escapade with Glenn, as you termed it, makes it impossible for me to return home." Her sobs filled the silence. "Don't say that, Frank. Don't you dare say that. I spent just 1 night away from you after 10 years, and that's not grounds for divorce. Think again. Infidelity is certainly grounds for divorce in Mississippi." "Why do you keep calling it cheating? It was just 1 night with someone new, just a fling." "When a married woman gets involved with someone new, whether it's for 1 night or 1 second, it's cheating," I said. "I told you that the second you had coition with another man, it would be over between us, and I wasn't kidding." "Oh God, please, Frank, you can't do this to me," Sharon pleaded. "You did this to yourself. Sharon, what the hell happened to you? Are you on hallucinogenic medications? Did you have a mental breakdown, or are you just incredibly stupid?" I asked. "It just seems to me that you were so caught up in the idea of having coition with another man that you didn't care about our children or what I thought or wanted. You just had to do it." Well, guess what? You did it. And now, you're paying the consequences, I continued. I thought we were really happy. Nice house, 3 great kids. Our bed life was great. And then you ruined it all by sleeping with some stranger and rubbing it in my face, I lamented. We've always been happy, Frank. And we are happy now. I was just wondering what it would be like to be with another man for one dirty night in our long life together. Just try someone new without injury. That's all, Sharon explained. No injury? For some reason, you don't understand at all what damage you have caused. You completely destroyed our family overnight. Because of your selfishness, you have broken our life into a million pieces. And there is no hope of ever putting them back together again, I declared. First off, Sharon, you broke my heart, even though you made it clear you didn't care, I said. Do you remember me? Your husband, the man who loved you without question from the moment I laid eyes on you. The one who works long hours every day to give you and our kids the life you dream of. And yet, you spat in my face and left me to find comfort in the arms of a total stranger. You gave him parts of your body that 10 years ago you promised would only belong to me. You made this promise before God, our families, and all our friends. And last night you rubbed it in my face, letting me know you were going to do it, no matter how much I begged you not to. You basically told me to get the hell out. You do whatever you want and it's none of my business. I never meant for it to look like this, Frank. I don't know why, but I didn't think I was hurting you. I just wanted to try something new. I love you. It was never about you. It was about what I needed. And that's what brought us here. You took yourself out of the equation. All your cheating with Glenn last night concerned only you and him. You didn't think about me or our kids. I deserve a special night just for myself. Well, luckily for you, Your Highness, you got your wish, and it ended your marriage to me, and most likely tarnished your reputation with your family and friends. There might be a day when I forgive you, but I'll never forget, and I'll make sure everyone knows what you did. Just like you called me a spoiled brat for being upset about your affair. Let's see how you handle that, knowing everyone will hear you confess to what you did with Glenn. And how many times? Oh God, Frank, please. My parents would be devastated if they found out. Too bad, Sharon. You should have thought about that before. You made your bed and now you have to lie in it. You seem to think what you did is like getting a traffic ticket or not returning a library book. You traded a solid 10-year marriage with a man who adored you for late-night encounters with a stranger who only cared about instant gratification. Do you feel good, Sharon? That Glenn slept with you 4 times and it cost you your family? I didn't have to lose anything, Frank. You should have loved me enough to support me and let me do it. There isn't a single sane man on this planet who would support his wife having an affair just because she wanted to try someone new. It doesn't work that way, and you should have known it. What were you thinking, Sharon, that led you to this? I didn't expect you to be so upset about it. I mean, seriously, Frank, what's the big deal about letting another man have coition with me multiple times? Sharon questioned. And what I did with Glenn last night doesn't mean I love you any less. I've heard about couples hooking up at Van der Links, and it intrigued me. Why can't a husband or wife have a lovemaking night with a stranger? Someone nice and safe, enjoy the experience and explore new sensations? I decided I wanted to experience another man having closeness with me. It didn't mean I loved you any less, Frank, Sharon continued. It just meant I needed a new experience with a different man, just once, and then I would fully commit myself to you again and never do it again. But that meant you didn't respect me. I begged you not to do it over and over again. And you just smiled and said, see you in the morning. Frank, you took away the closeness we've shared for over 10 years. The vows that meant everything to me meant so little to you. Our bodies coming together created 3 beautiful children who love us both. We were a family, and now you willingly gave that part of yourself that created our children to another man. And for what? A good time? A one-night stand? You say it was just one night and I need to accept it and move on, I said angrily. I say it was nothing less than a complete abandonment of me, our family, our sacred vows of loyalty and allegiance, and any respect you've ever had for me. You wanted to be with another man, and you did it. Congratulations. But in doing so, Sharon, you threw away everything you supposedly valued and treasured. Part of me still loves you, but I can never be a part of your life again, I admitted. Damn it, Frank. Why are you so stubborn? Why can't you understand that it was just something I needed and come to terms with it? I'm yours forever. Nothing has changed. Everything's different now, Sharon. You're not just mine anymore. I don't get why you can't see that. I pleaded with you not to do this. I can't forgive and forget. You betrayed me willingly, and this pain will last a lifetime. I found a lawyer. Tomorrow I'm filing for divorce, citing infidelity. I'll name your lover Glenn and anyone else from your gathering that I can identify. Imagine their reaction when they learn you're responsible for breaking up their circle and possibly damaging their reputations. Go to hell, Sharon, and take your cheating friends with you. The moment I met with Maddie Simmons, EastQ, I knew she was the right attorney to handle my situation. She cut through the nonsense and got straight to business. She asked why I wanted a divorce and what outcomes I sought. I explained I expected to split our assets with Sharon, offering our house in exchange for less cash. I knew I likely wouldn't get full custody of the kids, but I wanted unrestricted visitation without child support. I presented all the audio evidence I had of Sharon's infidelity, where she confessed repeatedly to sleeping with Glenn. Miss Simmons shook her head in disbelief that my wife was so careless as to admit her affair, let alone in a way that could be used against her in court. Well, we'll probably need a voice recognition expert to confirm it's your wife's voice, she advised. But unless we encounter an exceptionally biased judge, the recordings should hold up in court. We spent the remaining hour discussing my objectives regarding Glenn and the other participants at the wife-swapping event. While she doubted we could demand monetary compensation from them, she suggested we could find ways to expose their activities and shame them enough to inflict significant repercussions. I agreed that would be satisfactory for me. After providing a deposit, I requested that Sharon be served promptly. She assured me it wouldn't take long and promised to notify me beforehand. On Tuesday afternoon, I picked up my kids from my mom and took them to Sharon's house. When she greeted us at the door, she hugged and kissed all three of them warmly before reaching out to me. However, I stepped back, causing her to burst into tears and plead with me to stay. I explained that I couldn't, but I thought it would be best for the kids to return home to her. I arranged to pick them up on Friday for the weekend. Sharon appeared to be struggling, and I sympathized with her, but she brought this upon herself. Her distress was no worse than what I was enduring because of her actions. On Wednesday, I returned to work, realizing I couldn't neglect my job. I needed it now more than ever, not only for financial support, but also as a distraction. I believed that if I continued to dwell in the agony and self-pity of Sharon's betrayal, I would eventually lose my sanity, which I couldn't afford for the sake of my children. On Thursday, I met Doug and Max again, this time for dinner at the Oyster House, where I indulged in hand-shucked oysters and a dirty martini. During dinner and drinks, I updated them on my children and the divorce. Doug explored ways to conceal some of my money, and I granted him permission to proceed. Though it wouldn't be much, it would be beneficial in the long run. We devised a relatively simple plan to disrupt the wife-swapping club without risking accusations of slander. Max had a friend who worked as a reporter for the Biloxi Sun-Herald. He was confident that if I provided him with the location of Vanderlink's house and the approximate meeting time of the wife-swapping group, he could uncover the identities of some participants. He planned to write an editorial exposing the Biloxi wife-swapping scene as larger than believed, publishing photos of couples coming and going, hinting at the involvement of certain businesses without naming names. This would likely incite the religious majority to raise objections, causing trouble for the entire group. I gave Max what little information I had, and he said he would begin with that. With optimistic words, we shook hands and parted until next time. My weekend with the kids was delightful. We went shopping for new clothes, visited Disney's Grand 18 movie theater in D'Iberville, and spent the day at the beach, swimming and playing frisbee. My children were my top priority, and I swore I would never leave them. On Monday morning, Max called me. A friend of his from the newspaper had embraced the story idea and was working on capturing photos of couples entering Vanderlinks and emerging with new partners. Although faces would be blurred, people aren't foolish, and in a city this size, it wouldn't take long for the moral majority to piece it together. If all went well, it could become a front-page story. Later this week, I'll keep my fingers crossed. Sharon persistently called me, pleading for me to return home, promising to do anything to make me forget about her actions. However, she never apologized or acknowledged her mistake. On Wednesday, my lawyer informed me that Sharon would be served with divorce papers at our home on Friday morning. Shortly after, Doug revealed he had found a way to conceal about a third of my money by putting it in my children's names. Then, Max called, informing me that his friend from the newspaper discovered that the wife-swapping meeting planned to gather again Friday night at Vanderlink's. He intended to stake out the location and photograph everyone coming and going. He also wanted to interview me about the party, with the article scheduled to appear in the paper next week. I felt a sense of relief I hadn't experienced in a while. Friday arrived, and I anticipated Sharon's call after she received the divorce papers. As expected, my lawyer called around 2:30 to confirm she had been served. Within minutes, Sharon called, her tone far from friendly. "Hi, Sharon. How are you?" "What did you do, Frank?" she demanded. "I filed for divorce, Sharon, as I said I would," I responded calmly. "And I told you there will be no divorce. You've reported me for treason. Spending one night with another man isn't cheating, Frank," she retorted tearfully. "I have to disagree, Sharon. Having love-making relations with someone other than your spouse is infidelity in Mississippi," I stated firmly. Her voice cracked as she cried, "Why are you so angry with me, Frank? I love you. Glenn and I had an affair, that's all." "My mistake, Sharon. How could I have misunderstood that having coition with someone other than your spouse wasn't cheating? It's over, Sharon. I warned you repeatedly and begged you not to, but you did it anyway, and now you'll face the consequences. And I believe your troubles are far from over. Goodbye, Sharon. I wish you a happy life," I concluded, ending the call. My foremost dilemma remained my enduring love for Sharon, a feeling that likely would persist. However, trust was irreparably shattered, rendering it impossible for me to continue in a marriage with a cheater. Though I knew I should avoid Vanderlink's Friday night gathering, I couldn't resist the temptation to drive by, just to glimpse what was happening. Plus, I wanted to check if Sharon's car was present, even though I suspected she would skip the event. To my relief, her car was nowhere in sight. Yet she could have arrived with someone else. True, the club typically permitted only couples, but they made an exception for her once before. Who's to say they wouldn't do so again? Across the street, a van was parked, likely housing the reporter. I silently wished him luck in exposing their misdeeds. Soon afterward, Max's journalist friend contacted me for details, which I readily provided. He disclosed capturing over 100 photographs and recognizing more than a dozen couples, all respected citizens of the city. Oddly, it appeared that the same couples were not consistently entering and exiting the house. 2 hours later, Max furnished him with a photo of my wife to aid in identification, confirming she wasn't among the participants. He requested my account of the key party's inner workings, particularly regarding how keys were deposited into a large bowl. Though I hadn't witnessed the subsequent key selection firsthand, I gleaned a clear understanding from Sharon's account and eavesdropping on other couples discussing past experiences. Before concluding, he sought permission to indirectly reference first-hand knowledge of a marriage ruined by such parties, leading to children suffering due to divorce. I encouraged him to proceed until names were called. The article surfaced in the Sunday edition of the newspaper, triggering widespread outrage. Not only did it grace the front page with a large photo of couples entering and exiting, their faces obscured, but a dozen additional images sprawled across 4 more pages. Despite efforts to conceal identities, many participants were easily recognizable by their vehicles and attire. It was essentially Biloxi's elite. By Monday, the entire city buzzed with discussions about the exposé and the scandalous parties. Numerous priests aired grievances in radio and TV interviews, decrying the moral decline within their Christian community, while civic leaders denounced the city's tarnished reputation. Lawsuits and counterclaims ensued, to no avail. Repercussions included prominent companies losing clients, and multiple couples ending up in divorce court. For me, it was a humorous form of retribution for the agony endured from losing my wife and family. Even if some recognized my humiliation as a betrayed man, I remained indifferent. Revenge was all that mattered. Sharon persistently attempted to reconcile for months, but her efforts were futile. The divorce finalized, granting me joint custody of our children. During my custody months, she had them on weekends and vice versa. It wasn't ideal, but we managed. Since Sharon didn't contest any aspect of the divorce, I spared her the embarrassment of sharing the audio confession of her infidelity with her family or friends. As for the couples involved in the key parties, some divorced and relocated, while others simply vanished. Sharon resumed dating, although she seemed oblivious to why her actions were unacceptable to me. But that was her concern. I wished her future husband the best of luck. I dated several pleasant women, but never found one I was ready to commit to for life. Some wanted to move in, but I remained hesitant to hand over a key.